Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. It's good to see everybody. I hope everybody's doing well wherever you're at, whether it's the beginning of your day, end of your day, middle of your day. We just appreciate you coming and joining us. This happy hour we're putting on, IPC Global is pleased to host it. My name is Jeff Fairchild. I am a principal here at the firm. We are a Qlik Elite Solutions provider and the Global Partner of the Year, an award we've won multiple times. We bleed green. We love Qlik through and through. We've been doing it for almost the entire existence of the firm, so 20 plus years. And we're also a long-time Infinity partner and bringing in their solutions for like right back activity that when our customers need them. Many of you have it because of what it can bring to the table. Today, I'm pleased to have Simon Kirby with me. That we're going to show a product that they've released. I'll call it a product, where they've elevated the bar on what we can do, bringing in the planning functionality inside of Qlik using Infinity and using their solution. Um, this is a topic that's really dear to my heart because I spent the most of my career, the first half of my career, doing planning in some form, mostly in finance and planning and analysis, but also doing production planning, demand planning. We all face it. And so I'm excited again to have Simon here today to showcase what Infinity has brought to the forefront. And so Simon, I guess I'll hand it off to you to kind of introduce yourself and to lead us into it.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Danielle. So hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm the Brit in the room, as it were. As you can probably tell, I'm from the UK, not too far outside of London. It's a strangely dry and sunny, warm day here in the UK. And you'd love to know that we Brits love to complain about the rain, which we do have quite a lot of. But it grows good grass and we have good cows. So there we are. Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. For those of you that don't know me, I've been with Infinity for a couple of years now. I'm the Chief Solutions Officer. I lead the sales and the pre-sales team here at Infinity. And before that, I worked at Qlik. I was with Qlik for 7 years, and I was a bit of an industry specialist. I have a background in financial services, and yeah, my wife's an accountant, and we spend a lot of time talking about financial planning, budgeting, and all things finance, probably more than I ever really wanted to in my lifetime, to be fair, but we do. So thank you very much. So what I'm going to do is very quickly take you through one or two slides about Infinity, and then we'll dive straight into a few demos and we'll talk about the actual product, what it can do and how it can work. Danielle, just a quick point. If people want to ask a question, can they unmute themselves and just ask a question? Is that okay?
If you want, we can just have them write it in the chat
Okay.
and save it till the end. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, that sounds fine. That sounds fine.
I'm
We
good.
can definitely do that. So we can do that at the end, no problem. Excellent. So let me take you through just a couple of points here then. So let's start with a little bit about who is Infinity. There are like dozens and dozens of slides, and I'm going to take you through about one or two of them. So don't worry, this is not going to be death by PowerPoint. So just a little bit about us as a company. Infinity is actually a specialist software company. We create add-ons that work in Qlik Sense. So if you only use Qlik View, don't leave, stick around, because when you move to Qlik Sense, this will completely be relevant for you, right? But at the moment, the technology only runs in Qlik Sense. We've been working with Infinity for almost 20 years. That's just 15 plus, but it's closer to 20 now. We're a technology spin-off of a company in Europe that's similar to IPC, was a master reseller until very recently. Yeah, we've got around about 270 customers. That's growing rapidly, thanks to IPC as well. You've done a great job working with us, Jeff and Daniel, over the years. So thank you for that. And we have a customer network that's global. We've got people in Australia, in South Africa, in the Americas. So yeah, we've got people that work with us across the world, and we're fortunate to have customers and partners everywhere. So it's really good to be in that place. Now, very quickly, what is it that we've got? Well, we've actually got three products. The one we're going to concentrate today on is exactly as Jeff said. It's called Infinity Forms and Infinity Planning. Essentially, what it does is lets you enter data into a Qlik Sense application and save that data somewhere. Now, that's not something you can normally do with Qlik. For those of you that know, you can obviously pull data in from data sources. You can build a nice data model. You can then build a dashboard, you can do reporting, you can do automations if you're on Qlik Cloud, you can do a whole bunch of interesting things, but you cannot put data into Qlik and save that data for use in some other way, right? You can't do that. So that's what Infinity Forms lets you do. That's our primary, 99.9% of our customers use Infinity for that use case. We have a couple of other products very quickly. One is called Infinity Flow. It's a more standard extension, if you like, that runs in ClickSense. And it lets you build things like process flow diagrams, organizational charts, and things like that. And then thirdly and finally, we've also got a product called Infinity Mole, which is a little different. It's a connector, and it actually lets you read documents, word-based documents, text-based documents, and it can extract all of that information from a document and the words themselves, save them into a table, put them into the Qlik data model, and then you can analyze it and you can ask questions of a book or a magazine or something like that, right? You can say how many times does a particular word appear. You can do context analysis, do all kinds of very interesting things with Mole. So I'm going to touch on very quickly, where do we feel that we sit as a planning tool in the ecosystem of financial planning tools? Because there's a lot. I think it's fair to say that the most common planning tool, even today, is the Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheet or something similar, right? It's far and away the most popular use for planning, I think, in many firms. But it gets to a point sometimes where you outgrow Excel. That happens quite often. And then what do? You then generally have to upgrade to a planning tool that sits in your general ledger or ERP system, or you can go and buy some specific tool like Jedox or Anaplan or something similar. But that leap from a spreadsheet to those technologies is quite a jump. And sometimes you might be looking for something tactical in the middle that looks and works just like a spreadsheet, but gives you more control, more governance, more security, but just as much flexibility as a spreadsheet. And that's really where we feel that Infinity sits with Qlik. All right. So there are some nice use cases for Infinity forms. Let's jump to the next slide about planning. Let's just talk a bit about planning. What kinds of planning use cases can you actually perform? Well, the most obvious one is financial planning. That's the one where everyone thinks, okay, I'm going to create a budget. I'm going to do some kind of forecasting. That's actually what we'll concentrate mostly on today. We'll talk about financial planning, budgeting, forecasting, analytics, often known for short as FP&A, all right? But you can also do sales planning, or what's sometimes known as demand planning. And I'll show you something on that as well, because we've got a very nice demo about something we did with a customer recently. You can also do capacity planning. Years ago, I used to be an auditor. Can only apologize if you've ever been audited, but I was an auditor for a while. And one of my roles was to actually produce the capacity plan for the team. So which auditors would conduct which audits and when in the year that they would do that, right? So we had to do a capacity plan around all of that kind of stuff. And then equally, if you want to, you could produce a project plan, okay? Sometimes known as an initiative plan, project plan, task plan. But all of these kinds of plans you can build and produce with Qlik and Infinity. And it's not
I
too
like what
difficult.
you've said so far already, Simon, because, something that if you haven't used a planning tool, I've used things like Hyperion Planning, Oracle Planning, Anaplan. I've worked in SAP, and they're sometimes administrative nightmares to use because they're so overwhelming. And what you've hit here is something I think sometimes people don't think about is there's so many levels that we do planning. So many people focus on that financial side, but every organization, every piece of the organization has some form of planning. They do.
Yeah. They do. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, interestingly, I went to an event a couple of weeks ago. For those of you that are interested in golf, one of the UK's top golf courses is called the Belfry. I was privileged to be there a few weeks ago, and I was speaking to a group of customers there. And I started with the question, raise your hands if you've done a plan in the last day, or the last few days, or the last week. And I actually took a picture of the plan that I produced on the Saturday before, which was like a meal plan. And we produce a meal plan every week, right? And we do that because of COVID. Pre-COVID, we used to spend hours talking about what we would cook each day, and do we have the food in the fridge or the freezer, and what are we going to make? And we wasted so much time because we didn't have a plan. And strangely, then COVID came and we thought, what, we need to be a bit more organized. Let's make a meal plan for the week. And now each day we just go, what's for dinner? Okay, it's that. And we just make it. There's no argument, no discussion. And the planning has saved us probably hours, if not days of effort in the year, right? So that's just a very simple meal plan. So we all do it, whether we know it or not, we do. So yeah, good. Okay. Sorry, Jeff, did you want to add something else?
Nope.
Okay, good. Let's jump across to some demos. Let's get funky and real with this, right? So let's start to show you some cool stuff. All right, so we're inside ClickSense, and we've got a few demos open here. I'm actually going to move my tabs over to the side just to make it a bit easier for me to see things. All right, so this is a particular sales planning and forecasting app. So in here, we're going to create a sales budget. I'll show you different ways where you can create targets, budgets, and then we'll have a look at a forecast. Once we've done that, what we'll do is we'll jump over to something we built for a customer. This was built for an Irish meat production company called Dawn Meats, and I'll touch on that a little bit later and show you, explain the use case, what they wanted to do and how we helped them solve their problem. And then finally, very quickly, what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the idea of reviews and approvals, because whenever you produce a plan, it normally needs to be checked, reviewed and approved by someone, right? And there are lots of different ways of doing it, but I'll give you an example using this demo as to how we do this, all right? So, you know, the principle of telling people what you're going to do it, and then explain what you did. That's what we're going to do, folks. That's the way we're going to do this. All right, good. So let's start with the concept of targets, okay? So whenever we produce a plan, the first thing we need to do is define our targets for the company. What are we trying to achieve? What's our ambition? What's the objective? What's the goal, right? Now, this is a simple process that we've got here, and this is an Infinity form, all right? So what we have here is, this is our Infinity form. Down here, we have some Qlik KPI objects, and we have a Qlik bar chart. Okay, so the KPIs and the bar charts are Qlik objects. The Infinity form object is the table above. Now, what we've got here is the ability for each quarter to set a target by country. Okay, so at the moment, we've got a number here for Finland for Q1. And actually, that's quite large compared to the Q2. We can see the Q2 is 150,000. And for Q1, it's 3.1 million. So it might be an error. So let's just make a change, right? We'll remove the 3, and what we'll do is we'll hit the save button. And when I hit the save button, just pay attention to the KPI and the orange bars, all right? So we'll hit the save button. That's now saved. The KPI changed and the bars changed straight away, okay? So it's literally entered the value, hit the save button, that's submitted, the Qlik objects update, and everyone using the form sees the change in real time. All right, so at the moment you can see that there is 2 people using this form, me and the other me. All right, so I'm going to switch across to the other me just for a moment, and let's just make these 2 slightly different so we can see. So let's say, for example, we put that 3 million back. The other me says, the 3 million was a correct value. We'll put that back in. Now, before I hit the save button, let's go back to the original me, okay? And what you'll see now is that this value is locked because someone's made a change, all right? In fact, the whole row is locked. And we call that record level locking. So we're locking the Finland record, and you can't change it until it's actually saved. And this is a really important thing when you want multiple people to work together and collaborate on a form at the same time, right? You don't want people entering a value in one cell and someone else trying to do exactly the same thing at the same time. That just causes chaos, all right?
Well, this is a great improvement over the Excel world where you'd have files overwriting things and things like that.
Exactly. You imagine trying to do this in Excel, it would be virtually impossible. The nice thing is you've got some visual clues. You've got your mouse icon becomes a padlock, but you've also got across to the side here, the little padlock symbol that says this record is locked. So let's just go back to here again, and you'll see there's an edit icon. So the pencil is there, and we can also see a little dot and the value has gone bold, which means we've changed it. So let's hit that save. That's now committed. We'll go back and you see the padlock has been removed, and I can now click into these cells. So you get the idea. It's very easy to enter something. It's very easy to actually put something in and change it. What happens if you decide that you want to make a change and you make another change somewhere else? Okay, so let's change this number here, and let's change this number here as well. And then you think, oops, didn't like that. Let's reverse all of that. I don't want to do it. Hit the clear button, and it all goes back to where you were before, right? That's pretty powerful. Imagine making a bunch of changes, and then someone goes, actually, you don't want to do that. You want to do this instead. You can clear it before you commit it. There's something to mention. This lovely little save button just here is a manual save process. But if you want to, you can apply an auto save process. And if you do that, then everything that gets entered will auto save every 5 seconds. That may be desirable, it may not be desirable, but you get the choice. Okay, you have the ability to do that. So this is setting targets. One of the things that you might have been observant about is that when you hover over the United States numbers or the France numbers, we can't change them. That's because they've been approved. All right. So if I approve the Finland numbers here, they are now locked as well. So you can decide whether someone can approve or cannot approve. And the way you could do this, you could actually make it so that when an approver logs in, they won't even see that column. It will be, an approver will come in and they will see that column. A person that enters the data would not see that column, right? You can hide things if you don't want people to see them. Okay, so that's something that you can do as well. So you get this ability to actually lock things down. If you want to take the approval off, you can do that. And then, of course, you can then make those changes if you want to and save that position.
And so that's customizable there, that you can have approvals or not, is what you described, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And if you want, Jeff, you can think of this like a spreadsheet in the sense that it requires a bit of design. You have to decide what columns that you want, where do you want them. You need to apply things like calculation columns, which you can do here. So this is a column that's calculating the sum of the rows. Then next to it, we've actually got last year's revenue, and that column is coming in from the data model itself, right? That's not editable. I can't change that. And then the difference is also an Infinity calculated column, which is saying, let's look at the target total less last year's revenue. What's the difference? All right. So exactly as you said, that's completely customizable. You can do whatever you want. All right. The nice thing as well is that everything that gets entered is automatically logged. So whoever makes that change, we capture who did it and we capture the date and time that happened. All right. So any questions, Jeff, before I dive in? I know we've got everyone else muted for a moment, but any questions before we move on?
There's a question from from the audience talking about, so basically the chart is going to follow standard Qlik. So if we have section access, you can limit who can enter which row, right? We can control. Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, we completely honor section access. We honor all of the Qlik security, the concept of app access, sheet access, section access. We honor all of those things. We can apply that at the individual user or at a group level as well. All right. So there's all kinds of security and control which you can apply. And as we mentioned earlier, honestly, that's the biggest difference between this and something like Excel, which is really hard to govern and control. If not impossible, right? So with Infinity and Qlik, you get that security, the control, the fact that everything's in one place, which is fabulous as well. And you get the speed. It's really, really fast. Even with massive volumes of data, this is really quick. I mean, I once got a spreadsheet someone sent me, had about 12 columns and 1 million records. And I tried to sort on one of those columns. Honestly, I went and made a coffee and came back and it was still working on that sort process. As we know, Qlik doesn't work like that because of the way Qlik's designed. It's super fast, and that makes Infinity super fast as well. So yeah, it's very good.
One other question they asked is, because we've been talking about changes and saving, and you talk about the logging. The question is can I step back into a change? Can we log basically historically kind of what the numbers were? Can we design that into the workflow?
You can actually, and what you can do is whenever you make a change, there's normally 2 places that you can save the data. One is a file, and that could be a QVD or an XML file. And the other one will be a SQL server, sorry, not SQL server, an SQL database file, okay, or database table. Now, in doing that, when you write to a file, QVD or XML, what happens is if you change a record, it will create a new version of that record. It doesn't overwrite it. It creates a new version. So you've always got that history of what was there before. And then you get some choices as to how many versions you keep. You might say, actually, I only need to keep 1 or 2 versions of the historical data. Anything older than 2 versions, I can archive. You can do that, okay? Alternatively, you might wish to keep everything. Just be aware that these files get pretty big if you keep versions of everything that you've ever changed, right? So, but that can be done. If you're going to do it on an SQL database, then what we do is we actually recommend that you use the database logging tools. They're better than what we can build on a database. You can turn those things on or leave them off. It's up to you. But that way you can create version control as well. So that is all fully supported too. Now, the way Infinity Forms works is that it's designed to show you the latest record based on the date timestamp. That's what Infinity is designed to do. But you can always show different versions of the records if you want to. So that is doable. That's very, very doable. Jeff, does that answer the question?
I think it does, yes.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you. Good question, by the way. Very good question. Cool. So let's go and look at, we've set our targets, and let's now go and look at how you might do some budgeting, right? So now we're going down into a more granular level of detail. So here, for example, we're putting in some individual numbers by month, by product, by country. And so there are different ways that we can do this, right? We've got lots of rows and lots of columns here. But we could say, okay, I can change an individual number. So let's say I change this dumbbell number for Finland to, I don't know, a big number like that. You could do that. Another thing you could do is say, I want everything in a particular column to be one number. This is called a batch edit or a batch update. We can enter that 2000 in there, click this button below the column, and that will change everything in the column. All right. We could clear that if we don't want to. Let's apply a filter. Let's choose Finland as a filter. And now let's apply that, what we did earlier, the 2000, enter. Now what we'll do is remove the filter, and once that goes back, you'll see that the data we entered only hit Finland. Only what you selected will be updated. Now that's one way of doing these batch updates. There is a button here that you can create called a batch edit, and you could do it like this. So you can say, okay, let's have everything in February be, I don't know, 1200, and then 3000 in March and 4000 in April. And then we can hit OK, and it will apply all of these values at once. Right. Now, again, if I had filters selected, it could be anything. It will apply those batch updates specifically to your choices, your filtered choices. So you can be very granular about how you choose to bulk update something. You could apply something to dumbbells, whatever country, or dumbbells and yoga blocks only in France, for example. Right. So you could be very precise as to how you want to do that. So this is one way of doing this. There is another way. We could export this information out to Excel. So let's go into Excel for a moment. And what we'll do is enable editing. And let's say we want to apply an uplift on a month-on-month basis. So let's go crazy. Let's say we want 10% growth month on month. So we say we want the January number and we want to apply that, multiply that by 1.1. Enter. And we'll drag that along. That gives us our 10% growth. We'll copy this, Control C, go back to Infinity, drop into the February month and do Control V, and you can see it's pasted it into all of those months. We hit the save button, that's now done and saved. So you get this lovely ability to interact between Excel and Infinity. And when
so I
we
love
speak
what
to
you
people,
just did there, because like accounting and finance people will always love Excel. Again, that's where I cut my teeth, and I love it. But so I can still interact and do the cool stuff there, and then copy and paste it forward as I need to.
Absolutely. I mean, Jeff, I only did the one row, but I could easily have chosen all of the rows and all of the columns. One of our customers in the UK recently told me they did this with 20,000 rows and it was not a problem at all. So yeah, it's very scalable. It's very easy. Obviously, the one thing you have to do is make sure that your Excel columns align to your Infinity columns. They need to be aligned, right? Otherwise, you could get a bit of a mess. But if they're the same, you can definitely do that kind of thing. We also have an approval button here, right? If you click the approval button, this is a different way to approve something. With Infinity Forms, you get this concept of a pop-up window, and the pop-up window can be used for multiple different things. You can actually make pop-up windows that actually create a storyboard, one after another, and so on. And so you can actually create a completely step-by-step guided forms experience. Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, submit. You can do that if you want to. This is simple. This is an approval. You can check it. You can click apply, and that would then say that that is actually approved for this particular form. Okay, and everything would then be locked down. For the sake of the demo, I won't do it now, but that's actually what will happen. All right. That's one way of doing a budget. There's another way. Let's go to this way. This is what we call pre-fill and adjust. All right. So This is where you get interesting. So what we've chosen to do here is we've got our dumbbells product, and at the moment, last year tells me that we're looking at the values pulled in from the data model that were put into the data model from last year's system. Okay. Now, as you can see, I cannot change those values because they're last year's numbers. Let's imagine that we want to actually see a prediction instead from a model. When I chose that, these numbers changed. All right, they moved to predictive numbers. That could be from a Python model or an R model or any other model, right? Let's say you want a blank row where you can actually enter something yourself. You can do that. You can create a blank row and you can enter the values and save it. If you wanted to, you can either be more specific, go back to, no, sorry, not prediction, let's use last year. And then you click this little FX icon just here. Let me just highlight that so everyone can see it. We can click the FX icon, we click this, and now the cell becomes editable and I can put in anything here that I want to and save it. So you get a lot of flexibility. You can also click a button, and what it will do is it will pop up a window that will say, let's change the growth factor for everything by a certain growth coefficient. At the moment, this is showing 8%, but let's go crazy and make that 30%, 31%. Click apply, and that will apply that growth coefficient instantly to everything, which you can do, and then you can save that and use that. So you set your baseline from last year, and now you can use that as your, so you got your values from last year, you can use that as your baseline for this year. Yeah. So a very nice way of doing that kind of like pre-filling and adjusting things at either the high level or the detailed level, if you want to. And then the final way that we can do a budget, and this is where things get really interesting. So about a year ago, a number of customers and partners said to us, hey guys, it would be great if you could allow us to do the concept of putting in a number at the very top level, and then that will automatically distribute down across a hierarchy or throughout a hierarchy. So, and if you put numbers in at the bottom or the middle level of the hierarchy, it will aggregate up or down or both. It will do both, right? So we decided to build this. This is a pivot table. We call this the Infinity planning pivot. So it pivots just like a pivot table would, as you'd expect. And what you can do in here is enter some values in any cell at all, anyone, okay? So let's do this. Let's change the number at the top level from 140,000 to 5.1 million. Okay, we'll do that. And I'll just hit the enter key. So that enter key has automatically taken that number and distributed it down throughout the hierarchy. And it's done this using a proportional method. There are three methods that you can apply: flat, proportional, or weighted. And a weighted is a formula that you choose, right? But the proportional one here has been used. So it's essentially saying, what percentage of the whole did the previous number use? I'm going to use that percentage and apply it to the 5.1 million I've just entered into this box, and it will automatically distribute that down. If I clear that away, and let's put in a big number just for dumbbells here, put in something like that, again, press enter. Now all it will do is aggregate up. All right, because it's not affecting France. This is dumbbells only in Finland. It changes the Finland sub number and the total, of course, right? So that's aggregating up through the hierarchy. Now, at the moment, this planning pivot table is a little limited in what you can do with it, but there's a huge amount coming to it this year. The first release will be in a few weeks, where we'll be able to add in a few extra things in here, like some comments at the cell level, and you'll soon be able to add in another another column between the columns, and you can enter text into it. At the moment, you can just enter values. You couldn't enter any text if you wanted to, but you will be able to very soon. That's coming.
Well, this is huge right here, because you're able to do the top down or bottoms up, or like you said, mid-level planning. And this exercise in FP&A, at least in the software company I work for, this would take weeks to work through.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I think we actually lost the deal in the US because they built something in a spreadsheet that could do this, and we couldn't. And that was a couple of years ago, and we thought, right, enough's enough. Let's build something because it's clearly in demand. And you're right, Jeff, this would take a lot of work, right? To calculate these can you imagine creating all the formulas in Excel to do that kind of thing? It's pretty hard work, right? So yeah, but this will allow you to do that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. Any questions before we move on? Because I'd love to show you something that we did for this Dawn Meats company. But if there's any questions, we can take them.
I don't see any comments in the chat right now, so
Okay.
keep on going.
Good. All right. So this is a demo that was produced for this company in Ireland. They're called Dawn Meats, and they basically produce the meat products that we buy in our shops, our supermarkets. Okay. They used to have a spreadsheet, and they do their forecasting of their products, their demand forecasting on a week-by-week basis. So what you have here is every row actually represents one product. And what the account manager would do is say, okay, for that product, and the customer, in this case, would this awesome group name represents one shop or one supermarket, how much do I think they need to purchase of this product on any given week? And this is what they used to do in Excel, okay? So they said to us, can we make this better? We need to give the ability to people to enter a form, but it needs to drive instant analytics. We need to pull in data from various sources to complement this, and we need to make the accuracy of the forecasting better. So the accuracy on the Excel spreadsheet was told was 85%. That was their forecast accuracy compared to their actuals. And what happened after building this, and I'll show you how it works in a moment, but it jumped from 85% to 92%. Now, Dawn Meats is a €2 billion a year company. So when you increase that forecast accuracy by 7%, what you're actually doing is reducing your product wastage at the factory level, right? They can produce the right amount of quantity at the right amount of time and therefore reduce the waste. 7% of that level of product is massive. It made millions of a difference to this company. But so what did we do? What did we actually do, right? So we have forecast weeks 19, weeks 20, and so on, okay? So let's say, for example, the first thing the account manager needs is data from the previous year. Let's click the previous year button. And now we can see for week 19, we have the previous year, and we have that sitting nicely along our forecast number, okay? Then they said, okay, well, we could do with some account details. Well, let's have a bit more information about the account. What's the kind of 6-week average, the 6-week-on-week percentage, and so on. That gives the account managers even more information. Okay, let's hide that. We need a projection. What does our model predict the company is going to buy of this product? So they ran all of this through a Python model, and these now give us the actual projection numbers alongside our prior year numbers, alongside the forecasted numbers, okay? But what happens if it's a promo? What if we're doing a special offer on that particular product? We need to see if it's a promotion week. So we can see the products have got promotions, and we know by definition they'll be cheaper. We expect to sell more, so the forecast will grow, right? So all of these things come together to allow the account manager to make a much more informed decision. But there's something else. Meat sales are highly dependent on weather and season, to be fair, right? In the US, you sell a ton of turkeys Thanksgiving. We eat them all at Christmas and so on. And then, you know, different times of the year, we eat barbecue food and not barbecue food and so on. So we brought in a weather forecast, which gave them like a rolling view of the weather over the next week or two. And they would then be able to predict the certain sales of certain products based on the weather. So all of this came together to actually improve that forecasting capability. Recently did a presentation to a firm in the UK, a law firm actually, and they actually began a big argument as to whether it's going to be the accounting team that would do the POC on this, whether they would do budgets and forecasts first, or whether the sales team would get to do their piece first. It started a big argument. I never found out which team was going to go first, but it's a good problem to have, right? So that's just something that we did for a customer in Ireland. As you can see, you can actually apply all kinds of filters to this. You could choose a particular group name if you want to. The Infinity form will respond directly to the filters that you apply, just as you expect Qlik to. And you can actually filter inside the form as well, just as you would with a Qlik table. you can actually filter inside an Infinity form in the same way. That works the same, all right? So you get a lot of crossover between Qlik functionality and Infinity functionality. We've tried to make this as natively Qlik as we possibly can, okay? Okay, I'm going to jump into quickly now how you can do another way of doing reviews and approvals. And then what we'll do is we'll stop and we'll take as many questions as people would like to ask. So this is an interesting form because what we're looking to do is actually allow people to upload a document, and you can do this in Infinity. You can upload a document into here, choose anything, doesn't matter what it is, an Excel spreadsheet, a PDF, a CSV, upload the file, and then you can do some work against that file, okay? Now, in this case, these are actually invoices. So if I click on this PNG here, it will open this up, and I can open up that and we'll see a picture of an invoice, okay? So we've got invoices that have been received by our company. We now need to review them. So what can we do? If we first of all select this invoice, there's two other forms down here that are linked to the form above. So this gives me more information about this invoice, invoice 1. And we can see this invoice is from John Smith. It's been checked for accuracy and completeness. The values are correct, etc. And then we can write a long form note in here in the document notes box. If I was to change to invoice number 2, you see everything changes, right? So the actual forms are now linked to invoice number 2. So in a way, for those of you that might remember something like Access databases, this works exactly the same, right? You've got your master fact table, and then you've got subtables linked to that one, okay? How do you create the link? It's really easy. You just link on the ID, which is a key field. It's very simple, and we can take people through that if they want to know more, right? Anyway, what about the review? So let's go back to form number 1. Actually, sorry, just take this away. One thing to mention, the object you see on the left here is an Infinity flow object. This is actually showing us the status of the process of each one of these invoices that needs to be reviewed. So if I select number 1 again, you'll see that a lot of these boxes have turned blue, and they turn blue when the process has been completed. Okay, so if we change that from a 1 to number 3, for example, you'll see that only 2 things are blue, and that's because only the invoice has been received and the fact check has been performed. None of the other steps have yet been completed. Okay, so let's take that away. Let's imagine we need to go through a process with invoice number 3. We need to check the facts, and there is a form here. You click it, the pop-up form appears, and you can complete all of these different steps. You have drop-down lists, you can enter numbers in here, you've got a dates picker, all of these things apply, and you can then, when everything's complete, the progress button will go green automatically, and then you hit confirm. Then the finance team click their button and they get a separate form. The finance form will appear. Again, they complete everything, the progress button bar will go green. Then there's one for the legal team, again, a legal form. And finally, the manager gets to review everything and say, yes, I'm happy, everything's been reviewed. They can then make that go green. And then, of course, you get something called a change log, which shows you what the changes were, who made them, and when were those changes made, changed by, change date, and so on, right? So you get this nice change log view of everything. And at the same time, when you select something, as I mentioned, everything is shown to you in this flow object explaining exactly where you are in the progress of that particular form. So that's just a nice way to explain how you might create a review and approval process. Of course, once people have committed that decision and it's been reviewed and approved, you could lock it so that nothing can be changed. Just as you saw earlier when we were doing the targets, you approve something, you lock the values, it can't be changed anymore, that can be set. Good. So let me stop there, guys. And why don't we open it to the floor and take any questions that people would like to ask? I hope I haven't bamboozled everybody.
I don't think you have, but yeah, so come off mute if you have a question. If you want to ask of you, this is your time.
Or write something in the chat window, feel free.
Yeah, either way. Well, maybe you're thinking about your questions. You're going to be at Connect, right, Simon?
I am, yeah, going to be there. Qlik Connect starts in just a couple of weeks. We're actually going to be Ruby sponsors for the 3rd year running, and yeah, really looking forward to it. I don't know what happens, Jeff, but for some reason they put IPC on one side of the room and Infinity on the other side of the room. And as much as we ask them to put us together, they don't. I'm not quite sure why. You think Infinity and IPC being alphabetically similar, we would be aligned, but there we are.
Exactly.
No
Exactly.
problem.
So we're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Danielle's going to be there. Please come see us. Come check us out. Again, we're going to be in booth. IPC Global would be 914. Infinity's in 514, I believe.
Yeah.
I should have actually put in the chat, Danielle. I don't know if we have that link to Igor's video. But come see us. You see this background behind me with these swords. This isn't because I'm some, I don't know, weird person with some weird fantasy world I live in. But no, we're actually having a booth. We're talking about slaying the data beast, and Igor is one of our champions of it. And he has a very cool video that if you come and go to our LinkedIn page, and I think the link's out there, you can find it and find out who Igor is, if somebody hasn't already met him. So no, Simon, this is good. Again, this solution is, for those who are needing to do planning. I see this as a great spot, because you don't have to go off to a third-party system. You can bring it right into your analytics real time. You've got the bottoms up, top down planning methodologies, and I think it's just an amazing thing. And so if anybody on the call has questions, reach out to IPC Global and we'll hook you up. Because we believe in this. This is a very powerful tool.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I know that there's I won't name names, but I know there's 1 or 2 people on here that actually are involved in higher education, some people from universities on the call actually. And I just say that we've worked very closely with a lot of higher education organizations, and this is very popular for capacity planning. When you need to put lecturers in the right place at the right time with the right groups of students, as well as planning around things like rooms, lecture theatres, that kind of thing. Infinity can be used in that, and we actually have some brilliant use cases around that. Just one other thing, there is a customer, again, I won't name names, but there is a customer of IPC's in the state of Georgia that has a use case to be able to actually enter data, but with 2,000 users. The nice thing about this solution is it can be unlimited users at a ridiculously reasonable price. It follows the Qlik pricing model on cloud of actually being based on the data, which means that if you actually want a very data light solution where you're entering data rather than pulling data into Qlik for analysis, you could use Infinity Forms to build a form, capture data from thousands of users and save it. And the data going back into Qlik, which is what you're actually charged for, is almost nothing, right? So you can actually get this set up and for less than $5,000 or $6,000, right? It's really cheap for almost unlimited users to do fantastic data entry use cases. So yeah, happy to discuss those concepts with anybody, either at Qlik Connect or at any other time. Happy to chat.
And something else we need to call out here, something that I am so excited with Infinity getting done, but this is a hosted solution, but now it can be hosted in the US region. So for anybody who's had that issue or have been, that's a limitation for you guys, we can host it in the continental United States, so the data won't be leaving the borders. So
and that was
huge.
That was driven by Jeff and IPC. So thank you, Jeff. Absolutely right. Yeah.
And many customers are on the call right now that actually, because it was a requirement for them. So I'm so thankful we got that done. It's taken a long time. So there was a question that came in that I missed. Ginger asked, when you were doing the invoice, how did the invoice get uploaded? Or just like invoices were downloaded or added? How was that done in that demo app?
Okay. So basically we've got an Infinity field, which is inside an Infinity form. And there's a number of different forms. We didn't touch on all the different form types. We only really looked at 2 when actually there are 5 different forms. But you can upload a file. There's an Infinity upload field. You click on that and you can pull in a file from anywhere on your computer. At the moment, it's looking to pull in something from a drive mapping. So that drive mapping is linked to a OneDrive or something on your file server or on your PC. You can upload that file, okay? We're soon going to be bringing this to our cloud version. That will work slightly differently, because what you'll then do is when you set it up, you'll choose what the storage is that you want to pull the data from. And that will be things like Dropbox, OneDrive, S3 buckets, those kinds of things like blob storage, right? So you'll choose where your data needs to come from, and when you pull it into the form, where it will be saved. All right. So what happens is you pull that form in, and then when you click on it, you see an image. You can pop it up as an object, right? So that's exactly how it works. And Ginger, hopefully that answers your question, but please let me know if you want to know more. Happy to show you again or do a bit more in that.
Yeah, so I don't see any other questions. Think about Connect. One other thing I just want to throw out there, I keep bringing it up. If you're going to be there, please let Danielle or I know. IPC Global's hosting a dinner. We do a very good dinner, Fogo de Chao, so it's a really worthwhile. And we love to bring it. We had, I don't remember last year, Danielle, probably 50 some odd people there. It was amazing. It was a great time. And so please let us know, because we want to get you on the list, because we love our customers and we love joining and having fun with you all.
That was an amazing dinner last year. I swear my tinnitus got double as bad as it was before I went in that room. It was loud, but it was great fun. And the food.
Are you on the list for this year? Because we're going again.
I might be. Danielle, am I? I don't know.
Well,
if you
I'll
can,
make sure you're on it now.
let us know who from Infinity who's going to come, because we'll put you on the list. Let Danielle know.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just give me an email. I'll be happy to do it.
That would be amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Also, to answer David's question, yes, you will receive a link. It'll be on the IPC Global website, but we'll also be sending you a thank you email for attending the webinar, which will also include the link to our website, which will have the video available.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Simon. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. It's been a fun and a pleasure. Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming.
Bye-bye all.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.